What's up guys, welcome to the building of my gear room. I would say let's start right at the beginning. Okay, so when I first got the room, it wasn't really in the best shape. The people before me used it as a pantry, so as you'd expect, it was not only really dirty, the walls also kind of weren't that white anymore. So the first thing I did was buying some white paint, mixing it all up like you should, and once all of that was done, I laid out the entire room with some foil so that no paint will drip on the floor, door, window and heater. And of course, I wore some sexy old clothing during the entire painting process. After the room was painted and the foil was removed, I got my electrician grandfather to install my very bright RGB lamp in the gear room. Since the room was so small when it comes to the width, the first thing I had to build was the workbench at the back of the room, because it had to be built in the room itself and can't be moved after it. The measurement had to be really exact and I'm so glad it worked out. The shelf has the same style as my desk and some of my other furniture, which is matte black metal and some wood elements. However, there wasn't the perfect workbench that I would have wanted. There was a matte black workbench with some wood elements, but it was too wide for my gear room and they didn't have a fitting size. The only workbench that would fit my gear room size was this ugly silver metal with some wood elements. Paint. So I bought some black spray paint and painted every single part of the workbench, which was a really annoying process. Also, while I transported it back to the room, some of the paint already got scratched off because of the metal parts touching other metal parts, and even putting some blankets in between the parts didn't really help that good, but it's fine. Of course, I also made sure to wear a mask and some swimming goggles to look extra ugly, I mean, not to breathe in some toxic smells. So the workbench was painted, but of course it would cover the entire window if I would build it right now, so before that I got my dad to put a fly screen into it in case I ever want to let some air in the room. My dad's just an expert in putting fly screens in, I guess. Right in front of the window is a river, so mosquitoes are kind of a thing in summer. So the last thing I had to do before I could finally start building the workbench was get a rubber mallet. Now then it was finally time to build the workbench, which indeed was an exact fit in the gear room. Now since the leeway was so narrow, the black paint of the metal parts created some black spots on the white walls. But that's not a problem because I just used a dirt eraser to get rid of the black spots. After I vacuumed all the floors of the workbench, it was time to fill it with the equipment and of course also bring in the other shelf for even more storage space. Oh, and more good news, there was enough space for my little chair. Okay, so as measured, I have a perfect little space to turn everywhere and I can access everything from here. This is pretty great. I love it. Yeah, as you can see, I was pretty excited. Oh my god, guys, look at this. This could not fit in more perfectly. The measurements were perfect. I have to show you. Look at this. So the height of this section is perfect for these lights and the length of the shelf is perfect for my main lights. And I can have my backpacks right here. Then I have my rig right here or on the floor. Okay, but let's stop the showing of all of the equipment now because you will get a more in-depth look into all of that in next week's video, which is the gear room tour. The last thing I did was installing this awesome small red lightning lamp. Now since I'm not really a big fan of drilling things into a wall permanently, I used these awesome little Velcro cable ties to tie it to the workbench, which worked absolutely flawlessly. It worked good. It did work out. I use these things so often, they are really amazing and I can only recommend you guys get them as well. They are not only better for the environment, I guess, because they are not just a one-time use like normal cable ties, it's also really useful if you can readjust them, open them up, change it a little bit, and they also just look good. Yeah, as you can see, I'm a big fan of them. If you want to buy them for yourself, there's a link down below in the description. However, this video is not sponsored by these cable ties, which you could think now that I talked about them for an hour. Back to the installing of the lamp. The lightning can be powered by batteries, but you can also use a USB adapter to plug it into a power outlet. And there we go, a nice little accent light. Now that's how I built my gear room. If you now want to see a tour of the entire gear room, stay tuned for next week's video because that's a tour of the gear room. So consider subscribing so you don't miss out on it. You can watch more videos right here, and you can subscribe right here, and I will hopefully see you in the next video. Goodbye.